So, all right. I was already up here before. My name is Maria Johnson, otherwise known as Girl Gone Blind. Some of you may have read my blog, and if you haven't, where have you been? So, so if you want to know more about me and all that kind of good stuff, you can go to the blog, girlgoneblind.com. But one of the favorite things that I've gotten to do over the last 5 conferences, this being my 5th conference, is to moderate and host a panel of folks who are living with LHON, be it living with visual impairment or living as a carrier, or maybe just being a loved one of a spouse as somebody who is affected and has vision loss. So this year I have a great panel. I'm thrilled about everyone that's up here, and they've all got very different stories. They've been affected for different amounts of time. Everyone up here is affected, so just so you know that right off the bat. And what this panel's purpose is to have them tell their stories of being diagnosed and living with LHON. And some of you may relate to some of their stories, little bits and parts, and some may not. But overall, you'll definitely hear some things that will, hopefully let you know that living with LHON, it's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing. And that's, whether you realize that early on or maybe 30 years in or something, at some point, hopefully you will realize that, obviously it's a huge life change, but, it is living, and it still can happen, and a very, very good life. So the first person on our panel I want to introduce is Nate Gelbach. He is from Mill Valley, California, the Bay Area. He was affected about a year ago at the age of 18, and he happens to be my nephew. So, Nathan, can you tell us about your LH1 story?
So my name is Nate Gelbach, and I am kind of different from everyone else because I already knew I was a carrier because my Aunt Maria, she already had gotten it 5 years prior. And it kind of all started last summer after I had graduated high school, and I went to go for my 18-year-old checkup before I went off to college and everything. And they had me do the eye test, which is very similar to how most people find out. And so I covered my right eye, and everything was perfect, 2015 vision and everything. And then I covered my left eye, and I could kind of see like a little bit. I could see like the top few lines, but then the bottom lines were kind of shaky. And I was like, oh, maybe I just pressed it a little bit too hard. And so I kind of waited a little bit. I tried again, and it still didn't work. And me being kind of a competitive person, I kind of lifted up the thing that was blocking my left eye and cheated a little bit and got 2015 on my right eye anyway. And so, I went out with the doctors. Doctor thought I was fine. So I left, but I had actually already been to Dr. Sadoun in LA to have a baseline testing after I knew I was a carrier. And so we went and made an appointment with him because we knew what it probably was. So we just went, ended up just going straight there. And I went, and he told me that I was in, I think it was called phase 1, where, it was, you have it a little bit, it's a little bit in your right eye, could go either way, you could get worse, you could just bounce back and be totally fine. And I was like, all right. So I sat there, so I kept going with my summer and everything, still driving, because when both eyes were open, I still saw perfectly. And then it got a little bit worse. I think it was when it maybe transferred over to the second eye month and a half later. And I went back, and he's like, okay, now you're in phase 2. It could still get better, still get worse. And I was like, all right, that doesn't help. So I didn't put me on any medication yet or anything. And then finally, about 2 days before I was supposed to go off to college, I went down there again, and I was, declared that I was actually legally blind with 2200 vision. And so my mom was like, so then I was already had my schedule and everything, and I was supposed to take 18 units, and my mom was like, why don't you take like 8? Because 12 was full time. She's like, why don't you take way less? Just ease into it, see how it goes. But I didn't want to. I ended up taking 14. And so I did that, and it was very different because I played water polo my whole life, since water polo and swim since I was little. And going to college, I was going to be on the water polo team, but I had to I had to stop doing that because obviously couldn't play water polo anymore, couldn't catch the ball. And so it was different because I couldn't do that. I was thinking about lifeguarding at school because we have at our rec center because I had lifeguarded for 3 years before that. Couldn't lifeguard anymore. I'm sure no one wants me looking after the kids in the pool. And so I kind of went into it. I think it was actually a really good time for me to lose my vision if I was going to, because kind of everyone in high school that I already knew kind of never even really officially found out because I never saw them ever again. And everyone that was in college just kind of met me as Nate, the guy that's blind. And so it was great because they kind of never went through that phase where they're like, oh, how do we treat this guy? They're like, oh, he's normal. He just can't see as well. And so they all kind of treated me normal right from the beginning just because, it was pretty easy for me to just act pretty normal. Sometimes I have trouble recognizing, so sometimes I ask who they are and they get used to that and everything. And it's pretty easy for me to kind of look people in the eye, even though I see worse when I do that, just to fake it a little bit. Or if I don't feel like actually explaining it to people, I just act like I can see fine and they think nothing of it. Or, if I'm at the store, I'll just say I forgot my glasses and they're like, oh, okay, sweet. And so I go through that. And so then fall quarter, I kind of have to figure out school. I link up with my Disability Resource Center, which I kind of learned to take tests with. I use a CCTV to take testing. I got a Zoom program on my computer, everything like that. I ended up figuring out school and everything, and I ended up getting pretty good grades that quarter, and then went back home for winter break. And my whole life, I'd always snowboarded every winter for a lot of days. And so I went back and me and my dad figured out how we were going to keep snowboarding. It's because I already had a season pass that I bought after last season. And so we got the visually impaired orange vests, and we had Bluetooth mics where he would just ski behind me and he'd be like, oh, there's people on the left, people on the right, slow down a little bit. And I would, I knew the whole mountain pretty well because I'd skied there my whole life, so I would still go pretty fast and almost hit a few people. And then, so I got quite a few days in there. I ended up going to a music festival, Snow Globe. I liked concerts. I've gone to even more since I lost my vision. But, general admission, you can just stand up and you can push your way to the front. You say, I'm sorry, I'm blind. And just push your way all the way to the front against the fence, and you can see a little bit. And then, so I've been going to music festivals, and then winter quarter I came back, and I decided that I wanted to join a fraternity. And so I went out for Rush, and I ended up joining one. And that ended up probably being one of the best decisions I ever made, because everyone in my fraternity ended up being my best friend. They're all super supportive and everything. They help me out with what I need while not being too condescending in what they say or anything. They just treat me like a normal person. And that's been honestly one of the best things in college is everyone has treated me normal because they haven't known me as anything different. I love how I kind of end up using humor to kind of get through everything, it feels like. And I kind of consider someone like a best friend once they get to the point where they can make jokes about it and everything. And once they can make fun of me to the full extent, that's when we're best friends. And then spring quarter came around. I kind of got more involved. The DRC asked me to be on a panel during Global Accessibility Awareness Day or something, where I kind of just talked about all the accessible technology I used to all the teachers and community members and everything, and kind of talked about what helps and everything. And then I'm being asked to be put on a panel, on a committee for next year with like teachers and admin and everything about how our school can be more accessible awareness and everything, because most of the time they're not dealing with someone who is as visually impaired as I am. And it's like, how can they put PDFs that my computer can read for me, or how can they do stuff in class? And so I've been more involved in that and helping out my school in that and everything. And I look forward to the next few years on figuring out what works and what doesn't slowly, and continue trying to stay positive and keep moving forward and everything.
Thank you, Nate. And as the aunt, I just couldn't be more proud. No, I honestly, I mean, it blows me away. I mean, he did leave school with amazing grades, and he was telling me about this panel he's going to be on, and I just couldn't be. I mean, honestly, I just couldn't be more proud. Being having this 5 years ago and then going through, my sister and then him, dealing with this. It was rough for a while, but he's just done it kicking what. I'm telling you. Anyway, thank you, Nate, for speaking. Next, we have Nicholas. He is from Brazil, and he was at last year's conference, and he'd only been affected about 6 months, and he traveled all the way from Brazil to find his new family, so which is the LHON community. Yeah. Which I know many of us would never have done 6 months after being affected, is to travel internationally. But of course, he couldn't wait to come back. And he's here with his mom, came with him this year. And I asked him to speak and talk a little bit about his LHON story. So, Nicholas, go ahead.
Well, it's such an honor for me to be here and talking to you guys. Maybe I'll be shaking a little because, I'm not speaking my language. So even I can speak English is not so okay, and so I'm always feeling your guys not understanding me. So you can scream if you're not. But okay. So last year was just last year's conference, and coming up here and meeting this family was just a turning point for my process, because process is my chosen word to describe my experience with this issue. That is, for me, is not quite an issue. It's a deal to deal, and a thing to deal. And I feel myself dealing every day with this, but in a constantly changing way. Because I remember the first months that I had, my first symptoms. My first symptoms were on my left eye, and I started thinking, something strange is happening, but I really don't know what it is. And I started, as everyone else, searching on Google and saying, so how, what things can make we want just in the moment start seeing not pretty much. And your guys know that the options are not pretty good. So at the first time, I just imagined that I was dying in maybe 2 days or 2 weeks, or so. No, I need to do everything I can, and maybe having children, having all the dogs I wanted, being at all the parties I wanted. But no, it wasn't the first time. And then first at the first exam I did just said that I had no cancer, so I wasn't dying. So for me it was, wow, the first relief on this process. And the diagnosis, I'm really lucky on seeing Brazilians reality, because I live in a huge city, and the reference doctors, my doctor works on Sadun's equip here in team here in LA, so he's such a good doctor. And for me, it just took like 2 months to have the real diagnosed, and counting this time, because the exam we need to do, like the blood test, takes 2 months to get to Brazil with this our deal with it, yes or no. So it's a long time waiting and a long time not knowing what I have. So these first months were scaring, because I knew something was going not wrong but different, and I just didn't know what I have. So this when the LHON diagnosed my mutation, my 3460, yes for that, came, was just an huge relief, because I knew I had something to search on Google and know what I have. And I knew at this time who I need to ask for help. So I just figured out, okay, now I know what I have, and I know that I can talk to people and say, okay, I will find them and talk to them. So the first important thing is, I was telling people, and I tell everybody this, I just know one guy in São Paulo in Brazil that has a LHON as also, and the person who made this connection was Lisa Poisno. And we discovered after that our doctor is the same, but he was the second one to put us in contact. Lisa made it first. So from San Diego to São Paulo. So this group, this family is so powerful because I live miles and miles and miles away. And we can, I can be here and we can make this connection if, with a guy in Brazil, and now after some months coming here. So, some months after, I just discovered I was coming to Disney with my cousins. And I just searched the web for, okay, let's enter on LHON.org to see when will be the next conference. And it was just 2 days before I was getting to Orlando. So I said, what do I need to do to be there? I will do anything I can because I will be in the US. So I started making a huge plan and, creating, recruiting a team to, okay, what do I need to do? And I said, I'm a bit, I talk a lot, but I'm a bit shy sometimes. But I say, I will do everything I need. So I created a crowdfunding. I put my face on Facebook. And I said, people, I have 1 month and I need to go there. So, and I raised money. I changed my tickets and I came here by myself, discovering every challenge when it was, appearing for me, because I could not imagine. I always say that we cannot imagine our challenges before we get to them, because I had 20 years of my life seeing, driving, doing everything in a way. And then we need to discover the new way. It's not given for us because it's so personal. So there's not a receipt. This is the hard thing, but the most incredible thing too, because here we share, we listen to each other's messages, stories, and we know a path, not the path. Each one has, we need to find ourselves. So I just could get here, and was what I love to say is that when I got to the conference, I saw, five, I don't know, 100 people talking about LHON and having LHON and using voiceover and zooming things up. Was like for me, wow, I'm not an ET. Yeah, because in Brazil, with my friends, with my family, I'm the only one. I'm the first, blind people they are close to. So, they are always trying to figure out how's my life, how my life is, what are my challenges, and, how do I see? They are, you guys know, we can't say that. It's really, we can't say. And being here was just, guy, okay, you are normal, you have a thing, you need to deal with that, and you can. So it was, I will, talk about this turning point now that I got to the turning point, that I discovered, okay, now I need to, it's a reborn maybe experience, because I need to know that I'm the same guy I was before. I like the same things. My creativity is the same. My problems are the same, and nothing will, this blindness does not create anything. The things are maybe can be, for example, bigger or smaller, but they are the same. I'm the same guy, so I can do the same things. But the most challenge for me on this experience was to know that for being the same as, to show people I'm intelligent, I can do something, I can show them this, not doing the same way, but doing and getting to the same, thing in my way, in the way that makes sense for me. So after discovering that, my life changed, because I know that things are possible, and I can, for example, go to a party. I can go to college. I can work, and I can get to the same, goals as everyone else. But I'm not. I don't need to be, I don't need to force myself to do it at the same time, the same way, at the same time, because we're not equal. We are people alike, but we do things in a different way. So I started, talking to my college, to teachers, to people, and started suggesting them new ways to do things, because I said, okay, I can do it like everyone else, but this won't make sense for me. Like, for example, writing a paper. Everyone is writing a paper, and writing a paper is good for what? For us to, learn, to maybe study, and okay, because when we are making a test, maybe after, we just got read this paper, and okay, we are studying. And I said, this is not for me. This doesn't make sense for me. I love to. For me, listening things is much better, of course. So why can't I, record like a talk, like a speech, as like I'm doing here? That is the same difficult, I'm always, shaking, but record a voice message showing what I know, and then they, instead of reading, they listen to me. And this was an idea. I don't know if it works for everyone. I don't know if it's the best way, but they said, okay, let's try. So I see that for me, it's we are all adapting our lives. So me as a person who just grew up with no diseases and no nothing, and trying and discovering new ways to do the same things. So for me, the most important thing is that now I feel braver. For example, I before having this diagnosed, I would never come to the US by myself. Even I could see perfectly, because I was afraid to get to a place that I don't know anyone else. But when I knew that it was a challenge, I was alone. I was, I needed to ask for help. But at this time, I was brave, and I came. So I feel, even I see less, I feel braver. I feel stronger. I feel powerful, and I feel useful, more and more than before. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate your, really going through and giving some examples of things that you've changed, which is doing everything the same, but just doing it differently, and how you've grown since your diagnosis, which, we all loved Nicholas when he came last year. We couldn't wait to have him come back because he's just such a positive spirit. He really, really is. If you get a chance to speak with him as well as the other panelists after our panel is over and we're in the meet and greet, please do find any of them. So thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that. He traveled really far just to do that 10 minutes. So, and I bet his mom's beaming with pride somewhere in the audience there. So she is. Our next speaker is Daisy Polk, and she is from Memphis, Tennessee. She was affected 4 years ago at the age of 24, and I just met her in person for the first time today, but we spoke over the phone, and she's absolutely adorable. So Daisy, go ahead and tell us your LH1 story.
Thanks, Maria. So like she said, my name's Daisy. I'm from Memphis. I've been affected 4 years. I had just finished completing my bachelor's degree and working about 2 years out of college when I became affected. I first noticed that I was losing my vision when I was driving. I've suffered from migraines for about 16 years, and a part of getting migraines is, for me, is that I experience this kind of aura before the migraine starts, where for me it's an ocular, kind of like a clue to your body, hey, this is coming, it's a warning, like, get in bed, get dark. And so I started experiencing similar symptoms to that initially, so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be driving to work, I need to go back home, I'm going to be down for a few hours. But the migraine never came, and the visual loss and what I was happening did not go away. So I saw just a regular old optometrist, never had glasses or contacts, always had perfect vision. And she just was like, "Oh, you just need just a mild prescription for some glasses. Your eyes are strained." I was commuting 2 hours a day for work and under fluorescent lights, and she was like, "You're just strained. It's fine." So I did that for a while. So it started to get worse, and started having some different symptoms, and it took about 6 months of going to different doctors around the country and doing more tests than I ever thought you could do on your eyes, and before I finally got a diagnosis. And for a lot of people, I think it might be frustrating wanting to know answers, but I really, for whatever reason, had a pretty good peace about it. I wasn't just so anxious to know what it was. I just wanted it to level out so that I could adapt and continue doing my life. As with many of you, I'm sure the biggest change for me was not driving anymore and losing that aspect of independence. Especially being new to the workforce as an adult and, kind of doing life on my own, like that really was just a big bite of humble pie. And so I took a year off of work and was able to get on disability and get connected with vocational rehab, which is an amazing, amazing service. If you're newly affected and you have not explored that, definitely contact your state disability office and do that, because it's a wonderful resource that provided me with a center in Jackson, Tennessee, where I'm originally from, which is just right in between here and Memphis. A center for the blind that has all sorts of assistive tech, mobility services, people that would come to my house and, put stickers on my microwave or my oven so that I could, feel and tell, what to do and things like that. So that was a really good outlet for me to be able to adjust, and just made the transition extremely smooth. So that year off was kind of a healing year to adjust and just reacclimate myself with life. And so then once the dust sort of settled, I was like, okay, now what? I mean, I'm 20 at this point, maybe about 25. And said, okay, well, I'm not just going to stop living. Like, I'm not just going to sit on my butt all day. Like, I want to work. And I just spent 4 years trying to work, so what am I going to do? So I had a little bit of background working in a spa when I was in college, and I always had really enjoyed massage, and it just kind of dawned on me, I could do that. That's just using my hands. Like, I don't have to have any vision to do that. Everything I could think of involved, reading or a computer or having to see faces. And at the time, I didn't realize how helpful assistive tech would be to where I still could do those things. So I explored massage therapy and toured some schools and decided that that's the path that I wanted to take. So I used the assistive tech that was provided to me, and the school that I attended was extremely accommodating. I had some like projector and Zoom devices and voiceover and audio textbooks, things that help me take tests and hear the material. I did a lot of recording the lectures instead of note taking. I just recorded it and sat and actually tried to absorb it all. So it was a new learning experience for me, but I found that I'm actually a really good audible learner. So it was kind of neat. I always thought I was a visual learner, but I never explored it this way because I didn't have to. I actually discovered that I was born to do massage therapy. It's my favorite thing in the whole wide world. And, people ask me all the time, did you just do that because you're blind, or I bet you're really good at that? And I say, well, I think I am, but it's actually, it sounds odd to say, but I'm so thankful that I became affected and lost my vision, because otherwise I probably would never have gone into massage therapy. And I have built so many relationships, and the the independence that I've lost has birthed a lot of relationships, and I've explored other paths that I wouldn't have otherwise. I Uber just about every single day of my life, and I should have stock in Uber. I don't know if there's any stock options, but it's an awesome service. And yes, it is a little costly, but when you need it, it's so worth it. In Memphis, our public transportation is just atrocious. So in Jackson, where I was originally from, we had awesome public transportation. So I was able to use the local public transportation had a handicapped feature for a short bus, so to speak, that you could make an appointment and it would come to your house or the mall, wherever you were. It would pick you up and take you where you needed to go for like $2. So if your town has something like that and you haven't been using it, explore it. Or if you are in a big city and you have the train, like utilize public transportation, even if it's out of your comfort zone, because it is your friend and it will make life so easy. And a lot of times, like I got an extension on my taxes, and I actually was able to have a pretty large write-off on my Uber expenses because I was using my already taxed income from my job to pay for work transportation. So it's really not all a burden. I think the biggest thing for me now is if people say all the time, "You're so happy, like you don't seem like you're this hasn't defeated you or burdened you, why aren't you more sad about it?" And I'm just kind of natural. My name's Daisy, so I'm kind of a flower by nature. I'm just really bubbly and happy all the time. And but it is a choice. I have to choose joy every day because it's so easy to become defeated and depressed and think that LHON is bigger than you and become defined by what you lack physically, and that's just such actual BS. I mean, you are who you were created to be, and you decide who you are, and you are not defined by your disability or your lacks or your shortfalls. So my advice is to keep your head up and choose joy every day, because it makes it a hell of a lot easier when you make the decision to make the best of your situation. Because, I mean, none of us can do anything about it at this point. They're making great strides with the research, and I'm super excited to hear from the doctors, and I'm still learning so much. And I've been affected 4 years, but I still feel so like I don't know much about this. I'm just kind of rolling along with it and living my life. But things are moving along so well, and technology is so amazing right now. We have so much to be positive about and look forward to, and this doesn't have to be kind of like Nicholas said, like we're all different, but this doesn't have to define us or limit us. We just kind of find our path and make the best of it. And someone asked me the other day, do you get so sick of having to tell your story all the time? Because especially riding an Uber, it's a big conversation piece. Well, do you Uber a lot? Or why don't you drive? Or what do you do? How'd you get to do that? So it inevitably comes up. Or in work, people ask me, why are you looking, why can't you read my chart? Or, why are you staring so close at your phone? You're really into that text, aren't you? Like, no, I'm I'm not that obsessed with my phone. Let me explain. So, kind of like what Nate said, that sometimes you try and fake it to make it, because you're like, oh my God, I'm so sick of explaining this over and over. And it can become a little exasperating. But if you can try and see it as an opportunity, in my experience, people have become very encouraged and amazed, because it's not something that a lot of people experience or know someone who experiences. What we have is so rare, that, we're really blessed to have this amazing community and people like Lissa that have devoted their lives just because they care, to create this community and, just really be pioneers to lead it and bring us together and grow the research. And that's a huge blessing that we have. So I'm so thankful for everything that she's done. And this is my first conference, so I'm super excited to be here. And made some awesome friends and can't wait to meet more of you guys and hopefully come back the next several years. And so that's me. That's my story.
Thank you, Daisy. And she is just so adorable and cute, and she's just a Daisy. She just really is. But thank you, Daisy. Thank you so much. I love your perspective, which is, LHON helped you find your passion, which, it can do. It absolutely can do. So, and you're talking about Uber, if you guys get the chance, it's a chance to educate and bring awareness to LHON. A lot of my Uber drivers know what LHON is. A lot of them, you can't imagine that. But it does come up, and eventually, and they always have a blind friend or a relative, like, oh, my so and so is blind, and I'm like, really? So, and some of them don't, and they're just like, wow, really? And I go, yeah. So anyway, but it always is kind of odd when they go, well, so why aren't you driving? And it does. It totally comes up. So anyway, make the best of it. Educate, bring awareness to LHON and what we're all about. Our next panelist is Catherine Henry, and she is from Nashville. Well, she's currently living in Nashville, and she was affected 10 years ago, just a week before her 28th birthday. So, Catherine, can you please tell us your LHON story?
Yes. This is my first conference as well, and it is probably perfect timing to be asked now because I don't know that I would, even though I've had LHON 10 years, it's like it took me a decade to be able to really revisit that place of onset. I have obviously over the years, but don't do that very often. So I'm just going to speak from the heart and hope it goes well. It takes a moment to even get through my story, so just holler at me if I tend to go over. But 2008, it will go down as one of the worst years in recent U.S. history. I think we can all agree, and I really agree with that because that was my year of onset. So, yeah, because of the financial collapse. So I honestly believe that the way in which onset impacts us has a lot to do with your circumstances in your life at that time. I can look back and acknowledge that I was in a rut in my life when this happened. My father had died less than 2 years prior. I had ended a relationship. I had put all of my stuff in a storage unit and was living with a family friend in Texas who didn't care that I was a mess because he was glad to have the company. And so I had no real plan and was drinking too much when it happened. And so, that was just kind of the place I was in. That's all I can say. I did notice suddenly one day, I remember specifically one day, looking at the mini blinds and not being able to distinguish the lines between them, whereas I could have just, days prior. And calling my mom in Murfreesboro, where I'm from actually, which is just south of here. And, I understand that a lot of people have a similar story to mine where they did not know that this was in their family, and it, lots of misdiagnosis, or remained undiagnosed. So that is true for me. We did not know to be looking for this, or didn't know what it looked like when we, saw it. So, I too went to an optometrist. I remember driving to an optometrist at Walmart and was like, I can't see right in the middle. It's blurry, and it's also blurry outside of that, but it's really blurry in the middle. And, he did the lens. Is this better? Is this better? Is this better? No, not better. And so that was the second to last time I drove. I drove myself back to home and thought, oh my gosh, that was dangerous, especially it had gotten dark. So, I don't go there very often with what happened, after that with a lot of people, but I feel like I can, that this audience, okay, I feel very misunderstood in my life. I do, and that's probably shared by others. You know, I'm sure it is, but I feel like this audience, regardless of how those affected individually reacted to onset, can at least understand the place that I was in, that dark, confused, disbelieving, vulnerable, angry, sad place. And I was alone. I was away from my family. You know, I had this family friend, but that was it. And I drowned those feelings away. Those ugly feelings. I did. I just drank them away. I remember that I was holding out hope until this appointment I had. Mom, remember that. My mom is here. Sandra Cannon, so she's more familiar with the community than I am. And I called her when it was over, and she said, you know, give me the news. And I said, she'd been waiting to see that if it was hereditary. And I said, yes, he said it was. And my friend had written down, I said, it says a strain 11778. And she knew what that was, and I did not. And she, you know, lost it on the phone. And it's like, I don't remember much after that. I mean, this was intentional. I did not want to deal. I did not want to live like this. I was not, like I said, in just this place in my life already where I wanted to immediately learn to adapt and move on. So I, you know, take that place, add new blindness and isolation, and shake it all up for 15 months, and you get a medical crisis in need of divine intervention. And that is what happened in my life. So I got very angry with my mom, unreasonably so, because this was mitochondrial, and stopped communicating with her over the phone, and you know, just was in a really dark place. So to skip forward, I actually was in the hospital for 33 days. I had a torn esophagus where I had been throwing up and not really knowing that it was blood because I couldn't see red. And I had a cardiac emergency. I coded 3 times. And my mom flew down. They called her, they got my phone and went through it and found Mom a contact and called her and said, you need to get down here to Texas. And so she stayed there by my side, and I made it out of that. But here's the thing, when I got out of that, I was physically detoxed and sober, but I hadn't dealt at all with anything emotionally. You know, I just had no tools. I had in this time tried to learn some skills, you know, with the Department of Assistive and Rehabilitative Services of Texas, and they asked me not to come back to their program because I could not hold up my end of the bargain, which was to be sober through this stuff. So I literally had no skills, no tools, and I went to treatment. I am in recovery from alcoholism, and have many years under my belt now. But I moved back to Middle Tennessee, to Nashville, where I had family who could help me, and I was given a second chance in many ways, a second chance at rehabilitative services. Tennessee Voc Rehab is awesome. And a second chance at that relationship, because you know, God had a plan for me, and He made sure that person was in Nashville with no ties here when I was going to come back here so that my family could help me. And we rekindled it, and I had a second chance, you know, at life, physically, literally, and also a way of life. And I had, you know, everything in front of me. This person, Jeff, who's my husband now, he happened to have a job where he was working from home for himself, so he could take me anywhere I needed to go for this training, for vocational rehabilitative training, to where I needed to go to, you know, to work on my sobriety. It was just one thing after another happened, and God put people in my pathway. I've always marveled at how someone who can't even see faces make that connection, get myself anywhere. All the right people were put right in front of me, right when I needed them to to show me exactly what to do. And you know, I'm coming from a place of not knowing what to do at all. There is no instruction book on this. We all have found that to be true. So I met someone who mentored me as my assistive technology instructor. And she was at my house one day, and we were learning, you know, these key commands to check email. And she said, listen, you already have an undergraduate degree. Your goal, your employment objective is something in clerical, and I'm telling you, you can do more than that. And she said, what have you always wanted to do? And just to kind of make her shut up on the point, I said, go to law school. You know, what are you gonna? So there. And she said, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. Those books, they all started in digital form when they went to the publisher, so we can get you those, and you can use your screen reader and you can listen. And I thought, that is crazy. That is crazy. And she said, listen, if you want to, I'll give you the $50 it costs to apply, because we searched and, you know, we made it the lesson for the day was how to find that information on the computer with the screen reader. And she said, I will pay the $50 for you apply. And I thought, I am not taking money from this person, you know, and I took the LSAT, and I just, you know, moved on, kept my head down, and worked, and learned also that I had aptitude as an audible learner, and got in and started law school. I just going, oh my God, I had lost my vision like 2 years prior. And you know, and I walked. I moved to the campus area and was able to walk to class every day, and that is where I grew up again. I learned to love myself again. My relationship, you know, he stayed in the background while I worked on me, and while I made something of a life like this, and did it with a reader. And Voc Rehab absolutely helped me, provided that reader. And I just listened to all this law day in and day out and did it. And my mom, when I started, said, you're going to graduate with honors when this is all done. And I thought, Mom, that's one of those things you say, like, you were the cutest baby that's ever lived. One of those, you know, that you can't live up to, and it gives you a complex when you don't. But she's glad that happened, because, yeah, I thought, good grief, no, just tell me you'll have great attendance or something, you know. That mentor that encouraged me to go, she was at my graduation. And also the family that you know has supported me so very much. I did, yes. But you know, when I walked to those classes every day is where I grew up again, and I would pray every day, just help me do this one more day. Just make it go as well as it did yesterday, please. And I did it. You know, I did it with his help, and I make no bones about that. I knew from the day I started that I wanted to do something with this. I wanted to do something with it. God had set the reset button on my life for a reason. And I was given all this opportunity for some reason. And I said, I want to help people with disabilities. I want to help them make sure that their rights are protected. I don't know what that looks like. I just know that that's my calling. And so I can agree with having found your purpose through this. And so I was able to do that, you know, and I found that I actually had a lot of aptitude for a lot of areas of the law, but it never deterred me from wanting to get out and help people make, you know, because I know firsthand now what it's like to be kept from something, what it's like to be disabled by society, not because you are disabled. And so if I can just chip away at that iceberg in some small way, then I have done a good job in my life. And so that's just what I do. And I now work as an assistant attorney general of Tennessee. And I have a daughter. I've been married to that man for 2 years, and we had a daughter last year. So she's 11 months old. Her name is Lily. And, you know, we learned so much, obviously, about LHON through going through it, and we're going to find out so much more tomorrow about the mitochondrial aspect of it. But I know that, you know, that my daughter now is a carrier. I know that. And I am able, 10 years in hindsight, and I honestly could not have said this if I were asked to speak last year or the year before. It's taken me that long to really read about this thing because it was so painful. And so I feel like my drinking and my lifestyle played a role in my onset. I can just finally swallow that because I think that sometimes environmental factors, are at play in our lives, and so I'm going to have to be real with her about that, with Lily. And for me, I want to stay sober, to stay in recovery, so that I can be healthy if there's a treatment one day. But honestly, if that day never comes, it is well with my soul. And so I no longer put my eggs in that basket. But I do think that that Lily should know everything that we know about it. I have a brother who is unaffected, and we I was always special, I guess you could say. And so anyway, as I said, I just wanted to make the point that this has really changed my life so much for the better, and has given me a purpose where I did not have one. And law school had always been a dream of mine, but it was on the back burner and getting further and back. And so to have the opportunity, to have the services, to have that mentor, and to walk, across the stage, and her to come greet me after was the best day of my life, besides my daughter's birth. And the worst day before it was when my car drove away. Somebody bought it. That was tough. That was very tough. So as I said, I feel misunderstood a lot, but wow, I've never been in a room full of people who get it, who get why I can look at them and not see them. It just, I'm involved with the blindness community here. Lots of organizations I'm involved in many ways, but I still feel like, and we are joined in disability in that way, and even in blindness, but they not really, get it. And so I wanted to be real with you guys, and I think I've done that, bared my soul, and I hope that for anyone newly affected, oh my gosh, I've been there. It's God, especially if you're having a hard time. It's not always just pick up the pieces right away, but God, this diagnosis, you can make it what you want, and you might not know right now what that is, but that is okay. So I just want to thank my mom who's here right now, and that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. I am grateful for you for going, deep, going to those places where some folks may have been or maybe are in, and being real up here is what it's all about. So thank you for going down into the deep darkness where no one likes to really go or revisit, but bringing us to the here and now, which is so amazing. And it's just amazing. And I'm so glad that you agreed to be on the panel, because I know that we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, and it was, not sure about where you're going to go with it, but you did. You went right where you needed to go, girl, and you brought it forward, which is the most important part. So moving on to our last panelist is Paul Demet, and he's been affected for 31 years.
I'm old.
And I know, and he only looks 32. So, no, he's going to be 49. So he was affected as a older teenager. So Paul, go ahead and tell us your LHON story. Oh, and he's from New York. Sorry, I didn't tell you where you're from.
Can you hear me? I was 17, and I was hit by a car, and I was in a coma for about 2 weeks. Just under 2 weeks, and I thought I was going to die, but I came back to life. And so I dealt with this, lots of broken bones, and just about 9 or 10 months later, I started to notice this fuzzy dot on the upper left quadrant of my left eye. I was like, oh, what next? After healing all that time. And so I started college, and I had to quit. And I was actually driving at the time, and the one story I do want to tell is the last day of driving. It's just killer. It's actually kind of a funny story, though. So my mom just thought I needed glasses, so she took the day off work, and I was driving this 1965 Checker station wagon, which was huge, like a big steering wheel, and 5 miles per gallon, too. So we got to the end of the block, and I said, just let me know when the light turns green. And her Scottish accent, she said, green? What do you mean? I said, so she says, it's green. So I drove, and the rest of the way, she's just looking at me every time we got to a light. And she's, it's green, go. So we were going to Long Island Jewish Hospital. I had a doctor there. It was a long time in getting diagnosis. Remembering all this so long ago. I think it was just about 2 years I didn't have an answer. So we got to where we were picking up my dad, and we got out of the car, and I gave him the keys, and he's like, no, you drive. My mom's like, no. So I kind of, we have little things that we have to just push off. But, then I realized that public transportation was going to be the way that I do things. And where I live, it wasn't the best. But, my mother was really such a force in me becoming who I am. Just giving that kick in the ass when you need it. And also just very coddling. And, your whole world's changing. It's just like, take me now. But you just go on, and it gets better and better and better. And I decided I was going to school for physical therapy. Then I decided to go to school for massage, which is such an amazing movement. Like Daisy said, it was something I feel I was made to do. And it was now it's been 25 years since that. I am old. I am. But massage school was a great thing, and I think one of the most important things is that the people you have in your life, the team you create, and I think that's another thing that kind of pushed me along, and got me to where I am, to a better space in my life. And I've also been married to Eric now for 25 years, which is an amazing thing. My other support system. What? Married for 6, but we've been together 25 years, and he's old, not me. And but going to massage school was such a life-changing experience, and getting a job, my first job was, that was just so crazy, and having to be mobilized around New York City. But I did it, and it's a great thing. And then I wanted to move myself out of working for someone else, and I started my own business, which is a great thing. And I think through listening to everybody, it really is a thing that they just know. The whole room full of people, year after year, it's just such an amazing thing for me. It's like, I have to be here now, And I find such strength with like Lissa and Maria. It's just an amazing part of a trek. It makes it a little bit easier to know everyone else is dealing with this, and it, like you said something about the younger people, there may be days where things are just, this is awful, I don't want to deal with this, but it only gets better, you have to work your journey, and it gets better, and there's amazing people out there that help you, and I think that was my strength, and my mom passed away in August, and it was like losing a limb. It was just the helper that she was to me emotionally and mentally, and giving me that kick in the ass has been handed to Eric now. But I just think this meeting is, for me, every year just gives me such strength and pushes me along. And I'm thankful to be here. I really am. And I think the meeting people and talking to people on the LHON page on the Facebook is just amazing to me. Just hearing everyone's story, and like, I get it. I got it, And yes, I just want to end with thanks to everyone here. It's really appreciated. And that's it for me so far. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Paul, very much. Paul was here for the first time last year, and I think he already booked his reservation before he left to come back, and, but he, if you want to talk to some folks who have been here for the first time, last year, and boy, they couldn't wait to get back. I mean, that's really how it is. And, I think Eric said, now we know we have at least one vacation every year. It just depends on where the LH1 conference is. So that's a vacation. So, and truly that's what people do. So thank you again to all my panelists. Can we give another round really quick? Yes. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for willing to come up and tell your story, whether it's affected for a year or 31 years. You know, they're all just as important for everyone to hear. And we have a little bit of time, I think, to open up for any questions or comments to either someone specific, or maybe you just want all of them to comment on something. But we have mic runners, and they're just going to have to say whether or not, if you're there, because we can't see you. So, are there questions? Do we have questions? Okay.
Daisy, what were you doing before you lost your vision and decided to go into massage therapy? Daisy.
Sorry.
Oh,
Thanks. I was a lot like Catherine in that I was kind of in a darker place in life. I had graduated with a special ed degree and taught a little, and had plans to go to grad school to become a speech pathologist. So I was just working for a little while. I ended up moving to a different city and had found myself in a very abusive relationship, and I was alone and I couldn't drive, and I drove around blind for a little while, and that was stupid. But I didn't know what else to do, and I tried to get away, and he would come after me and things like that. So there was some some darkness there too, and kind of like what Catherine said, this happening was God's way of getting my butt out of there. So I still try and be involved with other people with disabilities, and especially kids. I taught pre-K and seniors in high school, and I absolutely loved it. I really did. And I know I could do it again with some assistive tech, but I didn't feel that I would be able to do it to the best of my abilities and capacity. And I honestly, I don't regret any of it. I've made some amazing relationships with my clients and in my place of work, and I get to fix people every day. I make them better, and I have no stress in my job, and I really don't have any limitations. So it really worked out. Everything really worked out for the good. It's been a blessing in so many ways than a burden. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Herbst. I'm from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. I have attended all of these conferences except one. I was at the original one out in Newport Beach, California, when all this started. So I feel, most of you can't see me, but I am mature, let's put it that way. And I'm a veteran, I'll call myself that. And I just want to take the time to compliment this panel. I'm going to get all choked up here. I've listened to a lot of this along the way and through the years, and this panel, you guys have been the most honest and heartfelt panel I've ever listened to. And I really want you to know that. You have opened up your hearts to us, and for you first-timers, I got to tell you, these guys have been so forthcoming with their emotions, and it just like took my breath away with your journeys, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Hi, I'm Cindy. This might be a better question for one-on-one, but I do eventually want to hear more about how you use Uber, because I have not figured that out yet. So if Daisy could comment on that, I would appreciate it, or whoever uses it a lot. Maria, anybody?
I guess that is probably, you could get like a full one-on-one, everything, but maybe Daisy brought it up. Let me ask you this. Were you afraid to use Uber in the beginning? For any reason? Like you're getting in a car with a stranger that you can't identify if he drives you off to Timbuktu?
So they
That's true. But we couldn't identify him. That's the really scary
They
part.
actually
Like,
have a
forget
new
the
feature.
lineup.
There's a new feature on the, I don't know about the Lyft app,
Yeah.
but on the Uber app, there's a new feature now where your friends and family can actually tie their account to yours.
Yeah, you
So
can see where
if
they
you're
are.
going to work or shopping, they can actually track you and see where you are and make sure that you've arrived safely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of really cool safeguards now.
But Uber and Lyft are very accessible on the iPhone, so you can call your own ride on, and you can definitely. I'm sure there's plenty of people to do one-on-one tutorials, and we talked about Ira. You can have your Ira agent, the one I did the demo on. You can call an Ira agent, as Alyssa touched on, and they will call a Lyft or Uber for you. And they will stay on with you until the end of the ride if you want them to. And so you, again, with Ira, you always have somebody with you. So in case you're not feeling comfortable for whatever reason, that Ira agent will stay on with you, and they know who you're with, they know the car, they know the lights, they know everything. So that's just another extra little thing too. But I did hear that the Uber and Lyft, they are getting more savvy on their safety, components, because there has been issues. But yeah, absolutely. You pick anybody, or anybody up here, I bet you they can get you on Uber in 2 seconds. They'll do it, right? Yep. Is there any more?
Hi, this is another Uber question. How do you use it? Do you use the Zoom feature on your phone, or because for me, although I have it downloaded on my phone, I guess because I have yet to use the Zoom feature or some of the full accessibility features on the phone, I would find it difficult to look at the app.
What type of phone do you have?
An iPhone.
So are you able to successfully navigate with the Zoom feature on your iPhone?
For the most part, yes.
So yes, that's primarily how I use mine. Although you can ask Siri to do it as well. You can
Well, I would
say,
have
"Hey
Siri.
Siri, I need a ride with. Can you request me an Uber ride?" And she'll ask for the address.
Oh.
But I use the Zoom feature. Yeah, you'll have to have your card already stored, and so she basically will just.
No, that I have all the information
Yeah.
downloaded in Uber already.
It's very voiceover accessible. So most folks, I would think, use it with voiceover. And again, maybe at the meet and greet we have an Uber corner tutorial going on. And no, I'm almost serious here. Like we get, to Uber Lyft, because I use it all voiceover. I can't see the screen at all. It's all voiceover. So searching address, clicking, request ride, where are they, what car's coming. It's all voiceover accessible. So although some folks may have a little bit of better vision than myself and can use the Zoom, it can be visually exhausting to look around that whole screen. So I'm serious. If you guys, if we can make a little, powwow on Uber, because transportation's it's a big deal. So, Howard and Cindy, anyone who does Uber over voiceover, let's get together and have that moment and get these people up to speed, because it's really nice to have. It's what it is. It's Uber. It's better to have it than not need it than need it and not have it, right? So yeah, there we go. Anyone else questions?
I just wondered if all of you or any of you have had pre-LHON symptoms such as optical migraines, which Daisy had for a lot of her life. I'm her father. And I have had up to a few months ago, lasted maybe 2 or 3 years. Anybody have optical migraines along with your symptoms?
I've suffered from migraines, not optical. Yeah, I think it's more traditional migraines. Probably since I was in my early 20s. I still get them to this day. And I do know a lot of the folks in the community do suffer from migraines more often than not. So, but what type of migraine, I can't speak to that so much. Somebody is sleeping during my panel.
Oh my gosh, my wife Diane said, "Oh, you don't say anything bad." I promise I won't. So, what are all of you now, through your experiences that you had, doing to educate, like other doctors and stuff that you have touched? Because one of the things that keeps coming up is, oh, they didn't know. I mean, have you had any successes with different things like that, with saying, hey, guess what? You don't realize this, but it sure would make it better if somehow other people didn't have to go through things, in your communities and stuff like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
With doctors alone, or pretty much anybody.
And as you touching people.
Yeah. Well, Nate, you've been asked to be on that panel at college. Which would be educating people in college.
I'll use that. Okay. I mean, for your question about doctors, I'm kind of different because I never really went through that process that most people go through, where I kind of went through like 5, 6 plus how many doctors to get to that point, because I kind of ended up going straight to Dr. Zadoon to get, so I've kind of only talked to the doctors that already know about it. So for doctors, that's kind of it. My focus is for educating has been kind of the teacher, professor kind of, I don't really get into exactly what my disease is, what my condition is and everything. It's more of how can they help out people that are legally blind, and what can they do to kind of make their things more accessible. And I've done that through panels or through going to my teacher's office hours and teaching my teachers what they can do. And hopefully my committee next year will even expand that even further. And that's kind of how I've been tackling that, if that hopefully answers that.
I have something to say because as I said before, in Brazil, I've listened to some stories about people who went to like more than 15 doctors, and then the last one said, go to the therapist, and this person stayed 2 years, no treatment, just doing therapy, and the therapist said, oh, okay, you're good, but it's not a mental problem. Maybe you have a physical problem. And then just after all this time, after maybe 2 or 4 years of the first symptoms, this person could get closer to the diagnosis. So for me, it's like I feel like an obligation to, teach who I can. Maybe all of my friends are, have Googled about the LHON all the time, and they are sharing with other people. I think with my last year's crowdfunding, was the thing that brought me here. I made a video to ask for money to come here, and then I was saying about this disease, about this conference, and then I can imagine those maybe more than 100 people were in this crowdfunding. So if just maybe them just went to the Google and put LHON, for me it's just big. So this is a thing, and I have some friends who study for medicine, and I'm all the time talking to them. So talk to your teachers, everyone, not just the optical ones. Everyone of them needs to know that this exists. No one can be 2, 3, 4 years without a diagnosis, because I know that the diagnosis is, for me, it was a relief. So having something wrong, going wrong, and not knowing what it is the worst thing ever. So I don't want anyone to, be in this situation. So for me, this thing, to everyone knows that this is a rare thing, but this exists. This you can have it. So
I was gonna say, I forget who posted on the Facebook group, and I shared it. It was shared from someone that was visually impaired, and it was talking about how trying to eliminate the stigma of associating the blind look. People
That was me. That
yes.
was me.
Okay, thanks, Maria. I really, really liked that. I thought that was an excellent point of view that's so valid that I deal with on a daily basis, because people are like, why are you being so snobby? You didn't look at me when I walked by. And I'm like, all right, hang on, let me explain. If that stigma could be at least reduced, that would be a really, I think, a great stride, because people they're not really aware of the blind community. They look at you and say, well, your eyes look fine, or, it's kind of like what Nate said, like, people see you with glasses and they think, well, you can see, put your glasses on. Wear your glasses or contacts, or you're walking around, you don't have a cane, you're not blind. So I think if there can be a little more education out there that blindness is not black and white, it's not, cut and dry, like there's many faces to blindness. That's helpful for both sides of it, I think.
It took 6 months for me to be diagnosed. At one point, they told my mom that I was perhaps making it up. But honestly, if I could change that and the first doctor have diagnosed me, I would still put my efforts all towards inclusion, towards what happens after that diagnosis, disability sensitivity, and awareness in general. So, anything? Any comments?
No, absolutely, Catherine. I agree, and a great question. And as they've all said, educating in different ways, be it in a college school setting, in just a friend circle, or in a workplace, or just in the public. You don't look blind. And the Uber drivers, all the Uber drivers know, all about LHON, all the Uber drivers. I went back to my optometrist after took me 8 months to be diagnosed. And I went back to my optometrist, who I liked. I mean, he didn't know. And I went back, I go, hey, yeah, guess what? This is what I have. And he says, yeah, we maybe had a paragraph about that in, when I went to school. That was it. So that was optometrists. They're only taught to look at the eyeball. They don't go beyond that. So, and then ophthalmologists go a little further, so anyway, it just goes all the way down the line. But I made it a point to go back to him and said, yeah, so here we are 8 months later, and this is what it was. So I educated him a little bit more. And, and again, I even run into people who think females can't get it. And, because again, doctors think it's a younger male thing to become affected. And to this day, there are doctors that think that. So, the more and more is out there, again, with Lissa, this community, the awareness, the education, and every Uber driver in the U.S. and abroad, can let people know, like, no, there was this, more mature female in my car, and she had LHON. And so, but, then they might tell someone, and, it's not going to make them a household word by any means, but, it will, not, whether it's blindness or LHON, it'll be out there, and it will be in someone's vocabulary, and, in mitochondrial disease in general, it's so rare. So, are there any other last questions? Because I know we're going to kind of get to wrapping up soon. Okay.
I'll make mine really quick.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Mine is sort of related to that. How do you all deal with the fact that you have information that may be important to other family members to know, to be aware, to kind of be on the lookout? And have you gotten a positive response or a don't bother me with bad news?
Go ahead.
I have an aunt in England, and she, my mom told her that because she has boys, and why not? Also a carrier. Yeah. So, and she's like, I don't want to hear about it, and her boys didn't really want to hear about it. And I have two brothers, and at the time when I was going to all my doctors, when they were tested, but they don't want to hear about it. I guess ignorance is bliss, but it's not. Yeah. But if there's anything they could do to prevent it, I guess they're not going to do it. But it's, yeah.
You gave them the information.
I did.
That's exactly it. You can give your family members the information, then I think it's their determination how they want to handle it. If they have the information, there's nothing else you can do. And then how they want to handle it with their own families, it's really up to them. That's how I handle it in our family. It's up to them, and they'll handle it their own way. But you hear both sides. They come together or they split apart, and there's everything in between, so. Let's go.
I've asked this before, and hopefully nobody takes this the wrong way, but for those of us that are carriers, to ask somebody who has actually been affected, what do you wish you had done before that you didn't and you can't do now? And what do you wish you knew beforehand? Such as, my brother's used the example of disability insurance. He did do that, which I've not. And I think if anyone as a carrier hasn't, might be something to look into if it's not on your records yet. So anything along those lines you guys can share.
I think I would have benefited greatly from knowing this was in my family at all, because, and I gotta say, I don't think 10 years ago, even the information that we have about it was available. But had it been, if I could turn back time and kind of know what I was dealing with, as I've opened up about, I think I would have behaved differently. So.
Anyone else?
I don't regret anything I done before, and there's no I usually think about this point, and I used to think, oh, okay, I was my dream was to be like a movie director, and the thing that I used to do the most was going to the movie theaters, and maybe going more. But no, I think I could go plenty of times. So I'm happy.
Just differently. I would have looked at my friends and family's faces like incessantly, like so much that'd be like, oh my God, get out of my face type thing. I would have looked at my family's and friends' faces, especially my kids, and looked and looked and looked and looked. I would have gone through family photo albums if I'd have known, but I didn't. But those are things I would have done. Although I can put a photo album underneath my CCTV, it's not the same. It's never going to be clear and all of that. But I still do. I do look at my children's faces. I literally nose to nose. They hate it. I'm feeling their heads and I'll get up in their face. But that's as good as it's gonna get. But if I'd have known, if you really want to know the truth, I would have really, really looked at faces. That's pretty much gone now. Any other questions?
You guys, we're just going into another room to network individually. So if anyone wants to ask
Yeah.
a few more questions before we break, we can grab one or two or three while we have them, or we can.
You can catch any of these folks later on, pull them aside, ask them questions maybe you don't want to ask in front of everybody, which is totally fine. You can want to ask them in a more, one-on-one situation. Please feel free to do that. I'm sure they wouldn't mind at all. And don't be in everyone's face now, okay? Not that I didn't want to give you that idea. Everyone's going to be let me look at you, make sure you know them and ask first, okay? So I'm going to turn the mic over to Molly with some closing remarks.